This call is being recorded.
Hello, everyone. This is Renee Rentmeester, creator, executive producer of the Cooking Without Looking TV show and podcast. And today we have to mind our manners. We have Eileen Ley on. Eileen, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Renee. My name is Eileen Rivera Lai, and I'm so happy to be with you
Oh, sorry
today.
about that lie. I sorry about that.
Do you want to start again? Or?
No, I'm
No?
good.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We our family has the nickname of the Honest Lies. It's spelled Ley. So that's how we teach people to say our name because nobody likes to call us liars. So they
Oh my
usually
God.
mispronounce our names.
That's funny. That's funny. Well,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about yourself,
Okay.
Eileen.
Well, I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and I've lived here now a good chunk of my life. I grew up in a Puerto Rican family of 7 children, and 3 of us were legally blind at the time. And that also meant that there was no room for a pity party. We had 2 of us
Right.
were just blind, and one of us, my youngest sister Susie, had multiple disabilities. So, of course, the family organized itself around caring for Suzanne. And so blindness was like no big deal. And that turned out to be a major blessing because I think that sometimes families can be their worst enemies of their children because they help the children feel too special or too important or too incapable. So I liked the fact that we grew up in a home where blindness was no big deal.
Well, that's great. What kind of blindness do you and your siblings have?
All right, so we all started out with a cone dystrophy condition, which wasn't even diagnosed at the time we were born. But it turns out we don't have the cones in our eyes, so that made us have problems seeing. And then we were highly myopic. And then, of course, when you're born with those kinds of eyes over time, things get worse. So I've basically now had about every eye condition you can imagine. I've had cataracts and glaucoma and keratoconus and eye surgeries, and pretty much now I'm down to seeing like lights and colors and shapes. And I'm glad I started out with a good philosophy because at this point, basically functioning mostly non-visually.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, at the moment, I have a company. It's called Blind Savvy USA, and the company is devoted to a couple of things. And one is to helping blind people and people with low vision be as successful as possible. And we offer lots of different training in order to help people sort of excel and make the best of their skills and abilities. And in the thinking about that product, one of the things that my husband Tom, who was also blind, he was blind from diabetes. We looked at the world around us and we said, like, why don't more blind and visually disabled people have more corporate jobs, more better jobs? And we felt like even though people were getting great educations and had great resumes, there was something missing. There was some kind of polish that we needed. And so Tom and I sat down and we talked about all the different skills that we thought helped us get to where we were. And we thought, how could we teach these to up and coming blind and visually impaired students? And how do we make them shine so that they can get in that door?
What were some of the skills you came up with, Eileen?
Well, one of the most important was the ability to network, the ability to connect with other people and make people feel at ease about our visual impairment or our blindness. So it was the people skills because lots and lots of people have technical skills, but that opportunity to connect with others and to put other people at ease is a less common skill, believe it or not. It's those people skills, right?
Right.
So we made a list of what we call the blindness nuances of all these different skill sets, and then we went about finding different ways to teach them and creating workshops. And so one of my most popular workshops is called the Blind Savvy Strengths series, and it includes components of basic elements like how does a blind person make a good first impression, down to how in a work setting does a blind person manage their workload and work professionally with other people. So we go start from the first elements of respect and basic first impressions, then we go into communication and how does a blind person make eye contact? How do we um, face a person when we're talking? How do we go into a room of strangers and network and find people to talk to? How do we network with other people and get noticed for what I say all the right reasons? And then we talk about being out in the community, and as a person with a disability, how do we serve the community and not just be served, but serve others and volunteer? And we talk about how volunteering helps open doors. It builds us skills and confidence, and it opens doors to other things. So then we move on to things like job searching and using your network and who's in your network and how do you expand your network and what's the real secret of networking. And to me, I think the real secret of networking is not about you, it's about other people. It's not about getting, but giving, like making great things happen for other people. So when you take that approach, that sort of secret success story of networking, wonderful things happen for you as a result of the fact that you're making great things happen for other people. So those are some of the things, and I love my company because it gives me flexibility to do what I want, and I get to work in different partnerships. And I think you've had one of my best business partners on the program, David Dinateris.
Yes, he was like one of my first podcasts.
Oh, he is wonderful, wonderful man, wonderful, lots of integrity, and very capable, independent blind person. And so we've been partnering. We created a whole program called ACE Academy online. So during the pandemic, we're like, how are we going to teach our skills to blind students virtually? It seemed rather impossible when we wanted to do more hands-on face-to-face programming, and we thought, well, no, we've got to find a way. So we worked for 2 solid months. We were unemployed, had no work coming in, and we just redesigned programming, and we called it ACE Academy Online, and that had all kinds of curriculum that would help blind young adults and professionals excel and soar. So it's been fun. It's been a great year of innovation. It's turned out to be one of the best years of our life. So.
That's great to hear. I've found that for myself as well. And why people, talk the pandemic down, there have been like it's just growth. And we wouldn't have, without the pandemic, we probably wouldn't have thought of certain things or taken the time to think of new things or to innovate.
You're 100% right, because you either can sort of sit there and have a pity party, or you can like make lemonade out of your lemons. And so that's what I've tried to do my whole life. Take my blindness and figure out, how can this blindness characteristic, which most people think is a terrible thing, how do I make it work for me? And then that's when I realized that the opportunity for networking was so great, because basically, since there are so few blind and visually impaired people in the world, wherever we are, we're usually like the only one. We're like special. I tell my students, we stick out. We stick out for all kinds of reasons, but we got to learn to stick out for all the right reasons. So I said, like 80% of the people in a business meeting, all these suits, they're all there networking, and they're 100% forgettable. You leave that meeting and you don't even remember who you spoke to. I said, people who speak to us, they remember us. They remember what we said because we're different. So let's use that difference to make ourselves successful.
That's a great point. Now, when you're networking, I know that some people who are sighted get a little nervous, with a blind person because, they're afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing.
I know.
How did you overcome that?
Well, so this is a funny story there. So I had a wonderful education. I got to go to Harvard as a blind student. I went to the Wharton School of Business. And even with all that education, 10 years later, 15 years later, I think, what did I learn that I really, really used the most? And it was the networking. And so regardless of what classwork we were doing, every week you had a master's tea, and you would go and connect with the headmaster's faculty and friends in your dorm. And so every week we would meet new people and learn to talk to strangers. And I thought it was all about the cookies and the free wine, but no, they were teaching us to network. Then I went to Wharton, and every Thursday night we had this thing called MBA House, where it was to unwind. You had to pay a fee, you had beer and chips and, pretzels, and you're talking again to strangers and connecting and finding ways to connect. So I really say that the number one things I learned from my, first class highbrow expensive education was to network and to talk to all kinds of people and to see that no matter who the person is, you can find points of interest. So you wonder, like, well, how does a blind person, connect? And I think it's super important to come in with confidence, have a good first impression, be well dressed, ready to connect and put other people at ease. Like, we know that sighted people can be a little uncomfortable when they meet a person with a disability. So the first thing to do is to try to find points of common interest.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
whereas on social media, people are always finding what divides us and what we disagree about and what we hate about the other person and how the other person is wrong. But what we do when we're networking is we're finding common bonds. Oh, do you like Chinese food? Yeah, I like Chinese food. Oh, where's a good Chinese restaurant? Oh, do you like reading novels? Oh, what kind of novels do you like? We're finding things that connect us. And as soon as we can show non disabled people that blind people are basically just like them, that we have lots of things in common except for this little disability, then, the world's our oyster. We can build upon that foundation. Does that make sense? So I'd say
Oh,
let's go
that's
find those
great.
little connections, right?
Exactly, exactly. I love that. I love what you said because even in the sighted sighted people, that's how we all connect. That's a human thing. You always find the common denominator between the two of you. Even if you like maybe you came from the same hometown and then someone asks you, "Oh, do you know so and so?" Well, chances are you probably don't. But
Right. But you're looking, you're searching, right, for that kind
right,
of throwing
right.
out these little like lifelines. Oh, did it connect? Did this connect?
I
And
know.
honestly, and there's always something to learn from other people, regardless of their their walk in life or their social status. There's people know stuff. People are fascinating. And when you look at the world like that and like, oh, what can I discover today? Life gets to be a lot more fun. And
It
there's so many things to know about networking. For example, most people go into a room are kind of terrified and nervous and awkward. So if we go and approach someone and talk to them, we're putting them out of their misery. You know, we're making them less self-conscious. Like that's a public service that we're doing
I
when we're
like that.
networking
Put
with
them out of their
people,
misery.
right? We just got to kind of get out of our own heads and start to think about others, and that really is the kind of glue that sticks people together. It makes
Well,
amazing things happen.
something that you had sent over to me. You guys have 10 tips for blind diners, and let me tell
Yeah.
you something. I've been to those dining in the darks, and
Oh.
I've probably broken just about any rule
Oh, that's
of
funny.
eating. So give us a couple of those tips for blind
Okay.
diners.
Yeah, so I did make these worksheets like 10 tips for blind networkers and 10 tips for blind diners just to try to like capsulize a little bit about what we teach in our workshops. And in the dining, here's the concept. Like when you dine with people, it's about networking. I
Hmm.
say it's not about the food, it's about the fellowship, which is kind of a radical thing to say on a TV, a radio show like yours, where a podcast where it's about recipes and food. But we know that it's the food experience that connects us. It's not just what we're eating. So I tell people, like, let's not obsess about the food. Let's build the fellowship around the food because all great things in the life start over a meal. Whether it's
Hmm.
a
Sure.
job opportunity and a lead or a business opportunity or the love of your life. It's going to start over, perhaps
The
a
meal
date, perhaps a
itself,
meal, a party.
yeah,
Yes.
it
So
sort of breaks the ice in and of itself, just having food around.
absolutely. Absolutely. And which is the tragedy of this pandemic because all those times that we want to like network over coffee or have a drink together or make dinner for people and all of that has been really curtailed so much, which is tragic. But we still have to find ways to make those connections. So I tell people it's not about the food, it's about the fellowship. So one of the first tips I give blind diners is like, okay, so when we do go to restaurants, those times that we do now and when we do in the future, you've got to protect that conversation time that you have with your guest or the person you're meeting. So you don't want to be obsessing about the menu. You don't want to be like asking the waiter about the prices of things. For example, we have the right because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, to ask the waiter or someone to read us the menu, to read us the prices, and to go over the whole thing. Right? We have the right to the access of information, but we really want to take that right and waste other opportunities. So what I say first to blind diners is, go figure out the menu before you get there. Don't make the sighted people at the table read you the menu. Know what you want to eat. We usually eat the same 10 things anyway, right?
Right,
I
right,
usually look
right.
for something with chicken and avocados and some kind of vegetable.
I look for cheese.
Cheese, yes. Cheese is wonderful. So I say, well, now the fact that even though we can't see things, right, we can go on the website. We can look at our phone and try to read the menu with our iPhone or with our assistive technology. We could call the restaurant and ask them about the menu, right? And so you plan ahead, plan in advance what you're going to do, so you don't waste time reviewing the menu. And if you don't have time to do that, I have two other tricks. I say what I do. First, I ask the waiter, um, and I say, "Oh, tell me, so what's really good here, or what do you sell a lot of?" Right? Because the
Mhm.
quality of a restaurant is based on the size of the menu. The bigger the menu, the lower the quality of the restaurant. Right? The more choices you
Right.
have, the
Oh,
less
that's a
good they
great
do any
point.
particular thing. Like you go into a diner and 25 pages later, you're like, what are they really good at? But then you go to a really good restaurant which has 10 choices. They've got to be pretty good to offer you just 10 choices, right? So I ask, what are you really good at? And I listen to recommendations. Or if the other person I'm there with has been there, I say, oh, so what do you like here? So that helps build some connection about common interest and common food. So don't waste time about the food. And also, in terms of like trying to get it just perfect, and I want this on the side and make it lightly breaded, and does this have this in it? Unless you have an allergy, you really shouldn't be grueling about the menu. Just get on with it so you can order, so you can do what you came to do, which is connect with the person you're dining with. So that's one of my things. And I used to agonize about the menu and about the price of everything and what's the best deal. And then I finally got to the point, and not so long ago, when I said, you know what? This is not my last meal. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, we're gonna forget the food, but we're gonna remember the conversation. So
Right, and
that's that's
you
one of
take
my
the fun
big
out
tips.
of it. You take the fun out of it
Exactly.
when you agonize over everything.
Yeah.
Well, Eileen, what do you have any recipes to share with us today?
Yes, I do. Well, I'm Puerto Rican, so one of the big holiday drinks that we have is called coquito, and coquito is a
Oh,
rum
I
drink.
love
Do
coquito.
you?
I
Excellent.
made it for Thanksgiving, but
Yes,
I
you
share it with Yes, I
did.
did. I love it because
Well,
in Miami you get all the different kinds of food,
Latinos,
and
yeah.
so I'm sorry, not stealing your thunder. Go for it.
No, no. And and people pride themselves on their secret recipe for coquito. And what I like to do is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be an expensive rum, and you can actually make coquito without rum. You can make a family-friendly version as well. But I like to take a can of condensed milk, and I take a couple cinnamon sticks, and I soak them in there overnight so that the milk gets a really nice cinnamon flavor. And then you can add some whipping cream or heavy cream or light cream, depending how fattening you want to make it. And then you can add some rum, and then you just season it with some flavors. If you like cloves, throw a few whole cloves in there, or if you don't. I love the anise stars. Have you ever seen those? They're little. They look
Yes,
like little flowers, and to
they're
me, anise,
adorable.
they're adorable, and to me, that's the flavor of Christmas right there. So I always throw a little anise star into it, and so that is my coquito recipe. And you got to leave it for at least like 24 hours. Let those flavors blend, and you want to shake it up really well before you serve it. You want to also have actually a can of cream of coconut in there as well to get that coconut flavor. So it's the coconut, the rum, and the dairy product. You probably could even make it with like almond milk if you've got dairy issues, but basically you just make it your own and have your own little recipe. And of course you want to serve it in beautiful little cups because that makes the experience, right?
Oh yes, but the little stars, that's a great
Yes,
idea. I
yes,
haven't
the
tried
little
that one
anise stars are
before.
beautiful. They're beautiful, and you can find those at the farmers markets, and they're very powerful. A little one goes a long way.
Oh my God. And that's so
Yeah,
pretty. For your guests,
yeah.
people always say, well, if you're blind, what do you worry about what people see, and it's like, well, you're doing it for your guests, you're doing it for your family.
Absolutely. I love the multisensory nature. So another like holiday drink that I love to do, which has a multiple purpose, is I love to make hot spice cider in my mini crock pot, and I'll throw like about 2 cups of cider in there and a cup of water, and then if I have a little bit of wine left over from another party that the red wine's not the best,
Leftover
second,
wine,
third
never
day
heard of it.
around, you pour it in there.
Oh, wow.
You pour it in there, and again with the same spices, the cinnamon and the cloves and the the all the little anise star, and then I also throw in the skin of like a tangerine or a clementine, and let
Ooh.
that kind of steam in the low. And meanwhile, in addition, as it molds and makes itself taste good, and by adding the water, it reduces some of the sweetness, so it's not so diabetes unfriendly. And diabetes, I'm really passionate about uh, diabetes and vision impairment because I used to publish a magazine about that. So you don't not all holiday treats have to be fattening and high sugar, but the nice thing is that as you're steaming this brew and you're have it in your little crock pot on low, it's also serving as a wonderful like air freshener and
Oh,
potpourri in
yeah.
the air. So you have this kind of Christmas thing going on in the air as well as
Oh,
in your drink.
wow.
And then the next day, if you keep adding stuff into it, add a little more water, add a little more leftover wine, and then if I have another party, I stick that in the fridge if there's some left over, and I just keep adding, kind of like how people make friendship bread. I do my little friendship spiced mulled wine cider.
Wow. So how long do you leave it in the slow cooker?
Oh, I leave it in there all day,
In the
like,
crock.
10, 12 hours. Like when I'm beginning to clean and get ready for the party, that's the first thing I do. And then, leave it in there till the party's over. And if there's any left, you can save it. It's been in a nice, good temperature, so there's nothing growing in it. It's good and healthy. And recycle, reuse, right?
That old taste of mold.
Exactly. That's the move.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
But man, no matter what you serve your guests, you want to make sure you have a nice conversation. You want to have open-ended questions. You want to draw people out. You want to make sure if you're at a table with people that they're talking to one another and they're not all these separate conversations. You want to make sure people feel noticed and included. And people worry about, oh, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Like, don't worry. Just ask good questions. You ask good questions, you'll be the most popular person there.
Right. That's your basic interviewing skills of anyone. You ask about that person. You don't talk about yourself. You
Right.
talk about, you have the other person. That's how you bring them out. Ask them something about themselves, and
That's
then you don't
right.
have to worry about it.
Yeah, I think of it like a little ping pong game too, because you do want to share enough that people feel like you care and that you're making a connection and that they
There.
know you when you're done. But different from like on a radio show or whatever. But you do want to try to think of it as like a little volleyball game or ping pong game. Like I hold the ball for a minute, now it's your turn to hold the ball for a minute, and you get to talk. And there's some people who try to hog up the conversation, and a good host will help steer people into good connections and good conversation, um, and
What's
draw
a
out
what's a
those quiet people.
what's an example of a savvy mealtime conversation?
Well, if it's a dinner party, one thing that I think really warms up the crowd is if you ask people how they met their significant other, how they met their spouse, because that
Oh,
gives a couple a chance to say something really nice about the person they came with, and that leaves them both leaving a little happier as they rekindle
oh,
the beginning of their relationship. I learned that from a great friend named Eddie Mercado, who was one of the guys that was my dad's friend who taught me to network. So that's what I watched him at different dinner parties when I was painfully shy, which you might find shocking to know that I was painfully shy, but basically I just kept learning and learning till I got it. So
well,
it's never
well,
too late, no matter how shy you feel. It's never too
no,
late.
exactly. And you just have to force yourself out sometimes. You sit there and you observe, and then you just jump in, and you sort of like swimming in conversation.
Absolutely. And smiling does the world of good, not just for you, um, for your person who's seeing your smile, but it just gives you more confidence. So you can even fake smile a few minutes before you go into a networking activity, even if it's something you're kind of dreading, and you just put on a happy face. Even if it's phony, your brain gets totally tricked into thinking that you're happy and that you're confident. So we do those kinds of activities with our blind students as well. So I love what I do. I work in diabetes space too because I care a lot about accessibility in diabetes. Um, and my husband was blind from diabetes, and we just had this goal and this mission to meet as many people in the diabetes industry to help them think about making their products and their apps and their services more inclusive and accessible. So that's another part of my business, but really the networking is what I love to do most.
And it sounds like you do it very, very well.
Thank you. Well, I hope I helped someone have a better New Year's Eve because of this podcast.
Now we have to have our savvy conversations on Zoom or one of those platforms.
Absolutely. I'd love that.
Well, tell us, Eileen, how do people get a hold of you and your husband with your
Oh,
business or in any other way?
yeah. So my website is called blindsavvyusa.com. So all blindsavvyusa.com, and that's my website. My husband has since been promoted, and he's in heaven now. So I do the company with other partners and friends. But he is my inspiration. So I still remember the things he taught, and I try to teach those things as well. So um,
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
yeah.
I've really enjoyed speaking with you today. You're wonderful. You've got a great energy about you, and I want to find out more tips on networking because we can always all use that, right?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I have like, yeah. If in my website, I think there's my email there, and you can ask. I can send people the 10 tips for blind diners, which we got to number one of the menu.
Well, that's just to sort of like prime the pump.
Exactly, exactly. So yes, it's just get out there and meet people and make connections, and don't let your disability slow you down. It's you know think of it as an asset and make lemonades out of it. We're
I
different and we're
like
going to
that.
stick out for all the
Think
right
of your
reasons.
disability as an asset.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Eileen.
Oh, thanks, Renee.
Eileen
Thank you so
Ley.
much for having me. It's
I
been a
really enjoyed
pleasure.
it. And if you guys want to get a hold of us, it's www.cookingwithoutlookingtv.wordpress.com. And boy, take care. Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye. Thanks.